Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Matters podcast. Thank you so much for joining us and tuning in today. I'm very excited about our next conversation. I am joined by Aron Samuels, and while I won't give too much away about just who he is and what he does, I really do have the privilege and joy of working alongside Aron and like what he's trying to see accomplished in the world. So I do have a little bit of a front row seat to all things the Wealth Coach, all things, well, not all things Aron, but all things the Wealth Coach. Without further ado, Aron, welcome. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much. Yeah, you have the pleasure and the sometimes headache of working with me. But yeah, excited to be here and just to chat a bit about all things the Wealth Coach.
Awesome. Well, let's get into it. You mentioned the Wealth Coach. I mentioned it. Before we get there, tell us a little bit about you, sort of a little bit about your background, and then the Wealth Coach. Where does that fit in? Where was it born out of? Yeah, speaking to that.
Yeah, so I think my journey with money started from childhood, as with most things. Grew up, my father was a businessman for many years, so I grew up around business and entrepreneurship. And then I found myself studying more towards business and law. And yeah, my academic journey took me into financial planning. Most people in the industry say that it's never really what you were planning on doing, but you just find yourself there and the love for it develops from there. So my background very much in financial planning and people's dreams and aspirations around money. And that is what guided me to the Wealth Coach.
That's awesome. You said your father was a businessman, kind of in business. How did that, did that have like any influence in you, like wanting to start a business, wanting to kind of combine your eventual passion of, about like money education? What did that like relationship inform?
Yeah, I think from that very young age, I probably decided then already that I don't really see myself working for someone else. And I mean, as you grow up, you go through different phases. So at one stage, I was saying, I'm going to start my own coffee shop or my own restaurant. And then I was like, no, I'm going to start a different business. But I was always looking to do my own thing. And yeah, as you grow up, it starts to shape and form and it becomes different things. And yeah, I think that is also has a big reason about why the Wealth Coach started, because it's me and it's my own thing. And that's essentially what it's about, yeah.
That's awesome. I've been following your journey a little bit, even before we started working together on LinkedIn and on Instagram, kind of from afar, and even before the Wealth Coach kind of became its thing, the thing that it is now, where it's a little bit of more of a platform and a brand that's establishing itself and kind of knows who it wants to serve. I love that you were always kind of doing those things, like putting out helpful and insightful content before the brand and before anything was formed. What kind of led you in those directions to speak openly about what you were passionate about, which is money education?
Yeah, I think there is too little speaking openly about it. And for many people, it is a bit of a taboo. Not many families talk about this kind of thing on a Saturday afternoon or Sunday lunch, talk about money and saving and what their worries are about money, and how money can be a big worry. But for me, it's very much a thing about what would I would have wanted to know 5 years or 10 years from now. And yeah, putting the info out there definitely is a big component of helping people. So yeah, that's the role I've been looking to play, is just as a step one, putting the info out there, making it accessible. A lot of people I speak to really appreciate the fact that it comes from a South African, for that matter, because a lot of the stuff out there is good content, good info out there, but it has an American wrapper on it, or a UK or European wrapper on it. And yeah, just having the South African spin to it, it's very helpful.
No, for sure. I 100% agree with it. Speaking into a South African context and for a South African context is so helpful. And I definitely think that comes through in kind of everything that you are wanting to establish. Everything that you're wanting to bring through with the Wealth Coach. So, Aron, maybe for the listener who hasn't interacted with you anywhere before, let's give them the introduction to the Wealth Coach. What is the Wealth Coach about? What does it do? And who do you partner with?
Yeah, so essentially the Wealth Coach has a strong focus on the human side of finance, or the human side of money. So it's centered around financial coaching. And what I found was that having the money and or having the info in isolation just isn't good enough. There needs to be a third component, and that third component is a human component. We're human beings, we interact with financial products, we interact with our money, but what are our habits, what are our behaviors, what do we get from our background, from the people around us? That truly does make a difference. It's almost like a tripod, and that's the third leg to get things going where you want it to go.
And who does the wealth coach like aim to serve?
Yeah, so I do my best work with young professionals that have just finished up studying, starting that first job, or within the first few years of their work. Yeah, it's a massive shift, practically and mentally. Finishing up studies, it's a totally different lifestyle now. You're working, and I need to navigate the money thing as well. And I find that a lot of people make some crucial mistakes or some slip ups in that first few years of working. And you spend many years trying to undo or trying to fix. So, yeah, like to say, prevention is better than cure. If I can put some tools and strategies into people's hands in that first few years, I really think it makes a massive difference over the longer term. Problems tend to compound. So if we can start to think about the behavior when it's slightly smaller, it's massive.
And what are some of those you call it slip ups, or maybe some like little mistakes that people make along the way, particularly in those like transitionary years?
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with just the influences around us. And yeah, the cliche is to live within your means, or even to live below your means. But that's obviously easier said than done. We are social beings after all. And I find that, look, there's a lot of symptoms. There's a lot of things I can name, like debt or not saving or budgeting, but those are symptoms. And it's very useful to look at the underlying cause of some of those symptoms. And it really comes down to living within your means. You want to achieve certain things, looking at why you actually want to achieve it. You want to buy certain things. Why do I really want it? We're not always willing to admit how much we care what other people think. It takes some of us longer than others to actually say to ourselves, but my decision was actually influenced a bit by how something's going to look, how something's going to come across. I find that many of us grow up in a home with parents and we have a certain lifestyle, and when you're done studying or a few years thereafter, you move out, you go on your own, you get married, whatever the case may be, you had a certain lifestyle before that. And yeah, that's a massive challenge many people in their 20s and 30s face now, is we're trying to match the lifestyle we used to have when we were living at home, for example. And yeah, that's where some of the problems start, because you can't really get there in 3 years or 5 years. And the damage really gets done in that trying to get there too quickly. Our parents took 10 or 20 or 30 or 40 years to get where they were. We're trying to do it in the first 5 years. That's
so
pretty much
true.
it. Yeah.
Like trying to have the exact same lifestyle, or even like trying to have that and more. More than you've necessarily previously had.
Yeah, and depending on your circumstances, you look at your home life, you look at your history, and you say, I want more for myself. I want better than that. Or you were very fortunate again, and then it's you reaching up, trying to achieve too quickly. Either way, having this type of conversation with yourself and with a financial coach, it makes a massive difference, because then you start to see some of the thinking, I almost want to say the motives behind some of your actions. Because you're doing these things, you find yourself in a bit of a pinch, but you haven't really thought about why. And once you have the conversation, you might realize, but I'm actually trying to get back to that lifestyle that my parents were at, or I'm overcompensating because my background wasn't what I wanted it to be.
And again, as you say, it's like the conversations that are kind of happening in the background in your head that you might not even be aware of, that is kind of happening, and it's going from one side of the brain to the other. But just important things that we need to confront when we in that life stage, and how it can actually either like set you up really well this 3 years, or it could do a little bit of damage. So I guess next up is starting the Wealth Coach, you've kind of just started from the ground up. And what has surprised you most about that process of starting up from the ground?
Yeah, it's been quite the journey. Yeah, I think every entrepreneur, solopreneur has had a different journey, but I think there's all have a few things in common. But yeah, I just realized starting up how many different facets and components there is to this thing, because we all have our craft or our expertise or our product.
Yeah.
But starting out, it's about so much more than your craft or your product, because you've got that nailed down. You're good at your thing.
Yeah.
But starting a business around your thing is a lot more to do with than that. And you just really need to have a certain level of proficiency with so many different things. And then I think also that self-awareness to know that you're not going to be good at everything. And you don't need to be good at everything. And yeah, just getting help in from the start, getting the right type of help. Yes, we bump our heads along the way here and there, but it's just realizing that starting out is more than just about I'm good at what I do, I'm going to run with this thing. There's so many components, and yeah, just that awareness. But you figure it out as you go along.
For sure.
It's not like you sit there on day one and I'm going to start this thing, and then you know everything that's lying ahead for you. It's as you take it step by step, you start to uncover, oh wow, there's this, there's that. And yeah, it can be overwhelming, but yeah, that's why you get up.
No, for sure. I think everybody we've asked this question, like everybody defaults to this answer, which is very telling of what the what the experience is like. So it's a very true reflection of what the journey feels like. Like there's so many hats that you constantly need to be wearing. But I think of something that especially a solopreneur or just entrepreneur across the spectrum face. Okay, I'm wanting to start this thing. We often don't also start with lots of resources to be able to get to outsource the help. Like it's a very good idea theoretically, like I can just outsource that, but how do you speak into that when someone's like, I actually don't have, I can't afford to like outsource the help, or there's financially just there's nothing, like I don't. So how does one navigate that? How do you plan for it? Can you like speak into that? Because I feel like that's a situation where people will be like, it would be really helpful to take someone on or to outsource just this job, but it's really difficult to make to make that call.
Yeah, there's two valuable resources, one of which is money, which you mentioned, and the other is time. And I think sometimes we don't always appreciate how valuable that is. I think when starting out, it's about deploying resources. And if you're not deploying the resource, which is money, you need to be deploying your time, because that's the thing you have. So if you can't outsource the business card design, then do a free online course and 10 YouTube videos and then do your own. If you can't outsource and pay for the website or the whatever, upskill yourself. And to my point earlier, it's about, again, upskilling and having that certain level of proficiency. I think that also puts a lot of people off. I spoke to someone recently he's looking to start his own graphic design business, and I see him once every 2 or 3 weeks, and I check in with him, how's it going with it, and he's like, I just need to sort out my website and I'll start. And I saw him again last month, and he's like, the website's almost done, and I'm like, buddy, you don't need to wait till everything is sorted, get going. So it's just about upskilling yourself to a certain point. Things don't have to be just right and perfect before you start going. And that's one of the things that I learned. If you're going to wait to be ready, or you need this thing to come through or that thing, it's really procrastination, because you're scared. We don't like change. We don't like, it's that fear of the unknown. So be it the little design thing or the little legal thing or the little tax thing, again, self-awareness to know that actually I'm really nervous about this thing, and I'm just using this as an excuse. Sometimes it's valid, but a lot of the times it's just that little excuse, because once that's sorted, there's no more excuses, and I have to take the plunge. So we kind of put these little things in our own way sometimes.
No, that's very good and insightful, and just if unfortunately, the financial resources aren't there to be able to purchase it, which in a very ideal world, it would be nice. But even just as you're speaking, I'm thinking about all the skills that I've accumulated and learned over the time because there wasn't budget to be able to do something. And so even the space that I'm in is at the time there wasn't budget to like get someone to build a website. Like there was nothing. And web designers are great at what they do and they're gonna deliver what they do, and that there should be web designers in the world. But unfortunately we just kind of didn't have the budget, to pay them what they were due, and that took like countless hours of of YouTube learning, of all these different tutorials. But 2 years down the line, on the other side of it, like I can build like a pretty decent like website.
You're not bad.
Yeah. I can build something decent, and I have a little bit of understanding of the back end, and those are the skills that I've learned that I didn't plan to learn, but has really aided me in the offering. So when I go to a client, I can actually say, well, if you don't need like a really customized, fancy, like super niche website, and you're looking to save on the cost, like let's incorporate this, which is an offering I would not be able to present otherwise.
Yeah, and that's also the value of upskilling yourself and having a bit of knowledge on these different components. Because when you do get to that place where you are appointing 1 or 2 people to do the job, you have a certain level of knowledge. So it's not that you can check up on them, but you can actually have a different level of conversation, because when they speak to you, they're not speaking Greek. Like you know the basics. And I'm sure that will also help you to hire the right people, because this topic isn't like totally foreign to you. So be that in the web space or the legal space or whatever it may be, if you have a basic knowledge, when you are looking to scale and appoint people, it just puts you in a much better position to do so.
Yeah. It's kind of to close up the thought of starting up. What has been one of the biggest lessons for you in the starting up process?
Yeah, it's scary. To my point earlier, we don't like change, we don't like the unknown. So confidence has a lot to do with it. So you need to stay close enough to your why to give you that confidence, and just making that leap, because that self-belief is the thing that's going to drive you, and that strong enough feeling about what you're actually looking to achieve. That's the thing that's going to keep you going, because it's going to be bumpy and it's daunting, but you know that you have something to say, it's something to give to the world, and that really should drive you. But you learn a lot about yourself in this process, and I always say I give great advice. I should take my own advice sometimes, but us as human beings, we're a lot tougher than we give ourselves credit for. We can achieve. And
I like what you were saying with like kind of staying close to your why is a lot of kind of like where your confidence to take your next steps can be found. How do you stay close to your why? What does that look like for you?
That for me is it's all about the feedback that I get. I share it with people, and it's small things, be it a DM or be it a comment, or email or message I get from someone, and they are excited about the progress they're making with money, or they're enjoying the stuff they're seeing, they're learning something. That gives me a reminder that what you set out to do and to make a difference in the way people think about money, the way people see money, getting that type of feedback, that's really the thing that keeps you going, because then that's my pat on the back. If someone comes back to you a few weeks or months later and they say, listen, when I used to think about money, I just got a headache. It was really like a bad spot in my life when it came to money, and things have changed. Things aren't like that anymore. Thanks for your help. And that's my pat on the back, just knowing that I could play a small part in changing the way that someone feels about money for the better, at least.
I think you also in that highlighting the importance of like staying close to the community that you want to serve, like staying in, not necessarily staying in their face, but just
Yeah.
staying connected, always willing to like engage and answer a question, because I think in that you kind of are reaffirmed in your why and reaffirmed in what you're wanting to see
Yeah.
happen through what you're doing.
And really for me, it's all about providing value to our community. But what is value? That you get from the community. The community will tell you what it finds valuable, and that comes through. They give you the context, and the
Yeah.
context comes through the comments.
Yeah,
The context
yeah.
comes through the DM. So, yeah, that's really important for me to actually be listening, to always be listening and consuming, and then I can deploy whatever in terms of resources, in terms of help. But
Yeah.
it really does come from the community, because you can't isolate yourself and think to yourself, well, this is an important topic. People should really know this. This
Yeah.
is important, and just shoving it in people's faces. I don't really think that's the best way to go about things.
For sure, for sure. And just speaking just in terms of value, you've got a few resources on your website that are kind of people who just want maybe like an introduction to financial education. What are some of those resources that can be found?
Yeah, so I've got a cool resource called the Financial Health Score, and that's really the starting point for me, because before setting off on a journey, in a car, for example, you're going on a holiday to the coast, you're doing those basic checks on the car. You need to know what this current situation is. You're kicking the tires, you're checking the oil, and before you set off on the journey. And it's similar on your financial journey. That health score is like a short little quiz, and that's really kicking the tires of your financial life and checking the oil and making sure everything's in order. So it's really useful exercise before setting off on a journey and implementing changes. First, have that awareness to see where you are at the moment, where the shortcomings might be, and then set off, looking at things like a budgeting template or some specific resources around saving and investing, navigating these concepts like interest rates, which is very much in the news now, petrol prices, cost of living. So there's a bit of everything.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Those resources are very, very helpful, and I think really practical. Practical can give you practical steps, to take forward if partnering with a financial coach feels like a bit too overwhelming for you right now. I think the resources that you've offered on your website, sort of free of charge to download, is really good for just awareness, which is a starting point for so much. I've heard Aron say like this budget template is not going to change your life, but it will make you more aware. And who doesn't want to be more aware?
I think I mentioned to you before, like the reason someone isn't budgeting isn't the fact that they can't get a template. It's the same reason why someone isn't doing Pilates or yoga. It's not because there aren't a million YouTube videos or guides or apps. The info is there. And like I mentioned earlier, that's just one part of that tripod. The info is there. But resources are there in abundance, and it's about the human being behind the resources that actually has to implement it and keep going with it.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Aron. So a large portion of our listenership and who we kind of want to be impacting and inspiring through this podcast series is entrepreneurs. But let's chat about kind of entrepreneurs and finance. It's kind of a contentious topic out those two worlds, almost like this risky living and then finance, which seems like you always need to be cautious. But number one, how do those worlds collide? What are some of the challenges you've seen entrepreneurs encounter, particularly navigating, life, personal finances? Could you just speak into those?
Entrepreneurs are very passionate about their craft, regardless of what it is. It's that passion that takes them to a point where they want to start their own business, own brand. And the love of the craft can become blinding sometimes because you kind of switch off from the, almost want to say, practical side of starting a business as well, of which money is a big component. So I would say that's one of the things I've noticed, that you can become so obsessed and invested in the practicing of your craft that you kind of neglect the money side of it. And at the end of the day, the business needs to make money. And just shutting that side of it off, on the longer run, you're going to end up struggling.
Yeah.
But yeah, apart from that, I think when a business does start making money, challenge that I often see is that entrepreneurs struggle to separate the business and personal finance. And yeah, I mentioned I grew up in around retail and shops and supermarkets and that type of thing. So I always use the example of a till. Like the business owner can't be digging into the till every lunchtime. You need to separate your personal finance and the business finance. And it's very rare that you would find an entrepreneur whose personal finance is a mess, but the business finance side looks great. So it's very important to get to a certain level in your personal finance as well, because that's definitely going to translate to your business as well, because a lot of it comes down to behaviors.
Yeah.
It's not like you can have bad behaviors and habits with your personal finance, but when you're handling the business's money, you're just going to be great.
Yeah.
You're the same person. Nothing has changed in between. You just have an added responsibility. So that's what I find. And yeah, it's similar challenges to what you find in your personal spaces. Sometimes it's just the not knowing, not speaking to people, not again upskilling yourself. I think there's two things: money and health. Whether you care about them or not, they'll care about you.
Yeah.
They're going to influence you either way. So
Yeah.
if you're not fanatic about your health or invested in your health, you don't have to be, but it's going to affect you. Same thing with money. You don't have to be into money, or you don't have to be a numbers person, but money is going to affect you whether you like it or not. So you can just as well upskill yourself to a certain level, and yeah, it can only aid you going forward.
For sure. I also think you're in an interesting position, because I'd say you're very passionate about your craft and the entrepreneurship side of you, but then you also, on the other hand, you kind of speak to people who are like you, who are kind of passionate and can be blinded a little bit by your passion. So have you found that like a tension to kind of live in, or not so much?
Yeah, it's where I was speaking to someone earlier today, and they're like, "Okay, so you're a money coach, which means you must be rich. You must be very sorted." And I told him, buddy, the fact that my money life isn't perfect means that I can help you.
Yeah.
Because if my money life was perfect, I couldn't be helping or teaching anyone anything. So now I can definitely relate. Yeah, it's just because you're the expert in money or investment or whatever it may be, doesn't mean that your money life is perfect. But yeah, I must say it does put added pressure on me as a entrepreneur, because I mean, imagine the wealth coach's business. Money situation doesn't look so hard.
It would be a good brand statement.
Yeah, people won't be taking me too seriously. I mean, if it's someone that's in a very creative field, for example, there aren't too many eyes or expectation around keeping the finances in order. It's almost like people are more forgiving with their judgment. But yeah, when it comes to someone like me, there's kind of that expectation that because you are a money guy, your money things always need to be 100. But we try to keep it as close to that as possible. You need to practice what you preach after all. Yeah.
There's a question that I have for you, and I'm trying my best to articulate it. I think there comes a point in an entrepreneur, maybe someone who's got like a side hustle, or they're working a 9 to 5 and then they have the side hustle. The side hustle's growing. What do they need to consider before you jump? Like how do you know when you're ready to make the jump into your full-time side hustle? What are some of the maybe the pitfalls because you can jump almost too quickly, or you could wait too long. Like how do you just know? And I think finances play a massive part in that decision process. Like how do you know when it's the right time, and what type of things should be top of mind, and should you be considering when you've got this growing kind of side gig and you want to give it a bit more time,
and you want to make that jump? I think you should jump when you're ready.
So what is that ready? What does ready look like?
Because you're never gonna be ready. I think it's about starting with a why. Because you've got the 9 to 5, you have your side hustle. Why do you want to move over? Do you want to put more time into it? Do you want to make more money? Are you unhappy at your 9 to 5? Because that's the first step, and that's going to have a big bearing on how well this thing's going to work out or not. Because if your thinking is, gee whiz, if I do this thing full time, I can make so much more money, then yeah, things can be tough. Because yeah, if money is your motivator, then just in life and in business, then you're gonna struggle because you hopefully will reach the point where you do make X amount of money, and then what?
Yeah.
So if money is the point of departure, then I think you're going to struggle. But just some considerations is firstly, obviously thinking about the why they actually want to go over to it, and then also just it's about being prepared, doing your homework on both ends, and just in the financial context, building up a bit of a buffer so that when you do make the jump, and not to underestimate how much it's going to cost you to go full time, because it's like going to visit someone for just the holidays and then moving in with him. Don't take the holiday experience and times it by 3 or by 10 because it's totally different experiences. So I almost want to say overestimate how much it's going to cost you. Work that buffer in, and then don't wait till you are ready. Because you're not going to be ready. And that applies to everything with money. It's procrastination, and a lot of times it's out of fear, it's out of uncertainty. But yeah, if your motivator and your driver is right and your why isn't money, then I'd say make your preparations, build the buffer, and just think it through proper, and speak to someone at Jumpstart and get some and get some advice. Speak to other people and learn from others' experiences. See where other people have bumped their heads so that you don't have to go through it yourself.
No, I think that's very insightful. I maybe should have disclosed this early on in the podcast, but my dad is a financial planner as well. So I've also maybe just grown up with some version of Aron as well. And one thing that he said, that when some of his clients who are in the more like self-employed entrepreneurship space, one of the biggest challenges they find is like a consistency in income, because your income isn't always, isn't always consistent. And so I think like what you're saying, like building up that buffer, and actually, similar to how like an emergency savings would work, and you actually decide like, whatever, come hell or high water, this is my month, this is what I need, this is my salary that I'm paying to myself monthly. So whether, I signed $1 million deal in 1 month, I'm not going to live any differently the next month. And just realizing this is the lifestyle that I'm comfortable with, this is the life that I want and the life that I'm trying to create. And almost you would always say like, don't think of it any differently than any other job. Your source of funds are just a little bit different. But the nature of like having a salary, of being, paid regularly, and helps you plan, and helps you make a little bit more like informed decision, and your life doesn't have to be as erratic as your, when you're taking on a new client, when you have a new gig or a new job lined up, but to kind of keep adding to the pool that can kind of fund your lifestyle accordingly.
I think sometimes it's almost like like this weird expectation that when you start your own thing, you're supposed to struggle. Like you need to go through the struggling artist phase. But just on the point of building up that buffer, like that's obviously, you can unpack that like into 10 different things, because how are you going to do that if you're on your 9 to 5 and you're making a bit of money in your side hustle? How willing are you, and how much humility do you have to actually downgrade your lifestyle for a while to actually put away the extra cash? Because where's it going to come from? It's as practical as that. Building up that buffer is you taking money that you usually spend to now set it aside, to set yourself up. How willing are you to do that? How much do you care about what your friends and family are going to think? Because you used to go to this type of places, you used to drive this type of thing, you used to wear this type of thing. How okay are you with not doing and going and wearing what you used to? Because it's more important for you now to start working on making that transition. And that's what holds a lot of people back. Also, starting your own business again, the whole social component is a lot of times the perception is, oh, you've got your own business, so you must be coining it now. And as people, we want to please, we want to live up. Like all my friends now, I've got my own business now. I'm Mr. CEO of my own business, and gee whiz, you can't even come out with us like on a Friday night. I thought you have your own business. Like, what is this? You could have stayed with your 9 to 5.
Yeah.
How much do I care about that type of thing?
Yeah.
I guess also depends on people you surround yourself with.
For
But
sure, for
that's
sure.
all the type of
All the
considerations.
type of things that you need to think through, and to place, to see the context that you're living in and what would make sense, and just to be honest with yourself. And I think, even for entrepreneurs, these are the conversations that maybe we don't have these conversations as openly, and as needed as it is. And I think, as you were saying, how much are you willing to give up if you're not in a space to generate extra income to put your, to add to that buffer or that emergency savings? How much are you willing to sacrifice in order to live out this dream and live out this passion? I think that again throws another responsibility on us. And I mean, not neglecting that people come from very different situations and different circumstances, and a lot of the time it's not feasible to downgrade any further. And I think within a South African context, that's so nuanced, and we can never just make these blanket statements. And I think that's what's really helpful with you speaking into a South African context, because we come with a very particular narrative, especially around the resource, finance, socioeconomic conversation.
Yes.
And I think that's always the lens that you're trying to bring through in what you're putting out and what the Wealth Coach wants to be. I just want to thank you for that insight that you sharing. But I guess one last thing before we wrap up is, what encouragement could you leave for an entrepreneur navigating business, navigating life, and also navigating personal finance, because that is what you do?
Yeah, that's a tough one. People are always giving other people advice when starting up. But speaking from my experience, I just think it's that keeping the eyes on the prize, and very much a focus on patience. We can be extremely hard on ourselves. When it comes to implementation, putting stuff in place, making connections, putting content out, speaking to potential clients, that's where you need the speed. That's where you need the speed on the day-to-day and the week-to-week. That's where we need speed to be applied. But on a macro level, that's where we need the patience, because nothing's going to happen in a year or 2 or 3. And coming back to my point earlier, if money was the motivator, you would have given up long before year 3. So don't let money be the motivator. Keep the macro picture and keep the patience, because nothing's going to happen quickly, and make sure that you're just implementing at speed on the day-to-day and the month-to-month. And then, everything will be okay.
No, that's awesome. I love that. And just really our last question is, what's up next for the Wealth Coach, and where do we find you?
Cool. So what's up next is more speed and then more patience, taking my own advice. But I'm just looking to add more, just to bring more value. And like I said, the value comes out of the comments, it comes out of the DMs, and that's what I appreciate. So I'm just looking to add more values and finding different avenues to do that. So there's potentially 1 or 2 different things coming up, hopefully some more podcasts. And you can find me on Instagram. The Wealth Coach website is up and going. Some of the resources are there as well. LinkedIn, I'm pretty much everywhere except TikTok, or might be there soon.
No, that's awesome. To our listeners, thank you so much again for tuning in. If any part of this conversation was somewhat, it was valuable to you, if it resonated with you, go check out some of Aron's free resources that you can download and, implement. And if you're looking to, take it a step further, he offers coaching packages, particularly for entrepreneurs to help in life transitions and just, getting settled. So do reach out to him. But Aron, thanks again for your time. Thanks for sharing with us. And to our listeners, we'll get you on the next one. Cheers.